Well, I want to welcome you to this Bible study that we're going to have this week on the book of Jonah. It's very much one of my favorite books. It was actually the first Old Testament book that I ever read because I was pretty much afraid of the Old Testament growing up. It just didn't make any sense to me. But after I became a Christian, the first book I read in the Old Testament was the book of Jonah. And it was so good, it got my attention so much that I decided that I was going to just take a shot at the other books. But Jonah is so full of story and great things. It's actually a very true book, a very true story. Jesus referred to it in Matthew 12 verses 38 to 41 when he was talking to the Pharisees who were looking for a sign, and he said the only sign that you're going to get is the one from Jonah. As Jonah was in the belly of the whale 3 days, so the Son of Man will be in the heart of the earth for 3 days. So I hope you're sitting back relaxing, and I'm going to read the first 6 verses of chapter 1. I hope you're willing to comment, and I will be on this listening with you, and anytime you comment, I'll join into the discussion. So I decided to come to Dayton because for us, or in the Dayton area, this is the great city, and actually Dayton is about the same size as Nineveh was in Jonah's time, about 120,000 plus people, and I think of that, and I think of what Jonah's response was to his calling, and it was a very human response. It was probably the same response I would have had. But let me begin, and I'll read these few verses, and then just talk a little bit about them. Here's Jonah chapter 1, verse 1. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. All the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God. And they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the load of the ship. But Jonah had gone below deck, where he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. The captain went down and said to him, "How can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us, and we will not perish." I tell you, I love this book, and it starts right out. There is no lead up. It gets right into the action. And that word that it starts out with, the word of the Lord, there are 85 different English words for that word in Hebrew. It means all kinds of things. It means revelation, it means vision, it means prophecy, it means being revealed to. Sometimes it just simply means idea. And I relate to that. Sometimes we just have an idea. And the idea Jonah had was so big to him. And you think about it. Go to this great city, 120,000, and take a message there about their wickedness, as if anybody's going to listen. And then on top of that, the relationship that Nineveh, the capital city of the Assyrian nation, had with the Israelites was one of extreme hostility. In fact, the Israelites could tell that Assyria was one day going to overthrow them, which they did. They didn't overthrow the entire nation, but they overthrew the northern kingdom. And so this word came to Jonah, and he did what most of us would do. He ran. I don't know about you, if you've ever run from that thing that you feel like God is calling you to do. Have you? Where did you run to? Jonah ran to Tarshish. He didn't just run away and look the other way. He ran as far as he possibly could. Tarshish is on the other side of the Mediterranean. It's actually in modern-day Spain. It's at the mouth of the Atlantic Ocean. He ran as far as he could. But it says that before they got there, they ran into a storm. And a storm that was big enough to potentially capsize the boat, and these seasoned sailors knew it. And they started throwing everything over. It's interesting to me that everybody else on the boat knew that they were in grave danger except Jonah. Have you ever thought about that? The things that you were supposed to do, people can see them. They can see the calling on your life, maybe sometimes easier than you do. And we're just asleep to it. Jonah was asleep. He was in a deep sleep. Have you ever reflected on your life and thought, there are some things I need to be about, but I have been in a deep, deep sleep about those things? I want you to think on that, and I'd love to hear from you about them. But then, in the midst of the sleep, God sent the captain down below deck where Jonah was to call him out. Who are those people in your life that maybe right now, maybe in times past, have called you out, have kind of said, been that messenger that the Lord has sent to wake you up? And right now, in the midst of this coronavirus that we are experiencing, is God waking you up? Is there anything that you need to be about when we as an entire planet are realizing how fragile we really are and how easily the ship can capsize? What's he calling you to do? Well, I want to welcome you this week to the book of Jonah, and I'd love to hear your comments and get into a discussion with you. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night after we move through these first 6 verses. We'll go into the next section, and I hope you join me.